Hello, welcome back to the Star Trek Set Chat and Pack Crack video series. I'm Mike Sember, talking with our experts, Dan Winterhalter, Johannes Klarhauser, and Tom Target. We also had a host of beautiful pictures from Josh Fry through this video series. This video is going to be a bit of an expert showcase. The folks here that know so much about Star Trek CCG are going to be doing kind of some unique presentations that line up with their area of expertise. Johannes, can you get us going?
Sure. So since we opened one pack of each expansion, I tried to build a deck from all these cards. And when I was doing that, I kind of had in mind what cards would I really want to see, which is something that we talked about in the series, and which cards I really don't want to see, which is something we haven't touched upon yet. So I'm going to start off with kind of the worst possible outcomes of cards in the rare slot. In most of the cases. So I'll just talk you through that, and then I'll have a look at what we actually got and see if we can build a working deck from that. So let me just share my screen with you. Can you all see it?
Looks good.
Okay, so let's start. In the first set, in Premier Set, I really wouldn't want to see Check on Track Information Broker. It doesn't do anything for our deck. It just lets us look at the opponent's deck, which is pretty useless. In Alternate Universe, Empathic Echo is a dilemma that really doesn't do much. It needs an AU door, and even then, the effect is pretty negligible. In Q, there's Mr. Hom, a kind of iconic character whose special abilities are so situational that they won't ever be useful. Weird choice in First Contact. The USS Enterprise E is a card we really don't want to see. It's rare. It needs 2 Enterprise E personnel to staff, and they all appear in the rare slot as well. So that card would be entirely useless. In Deep Space Nine, System 5 Disruptors is again such a situational card. Whether we can get a freighter transport or such a ship is very, very questionable. Same goes for Garrick's Tailor Shop, a site, and we are probably not getting a NOR anyway, so sites are pretty much useless, and this one is the most useless one in this scenario because there simply aren't many Cardassians available. Croden's Key, among all the artifacts, this is the one that sees the least play, I think. There are some situations where you could use it. In our format, it's almost impossible to pull it off. It's hard enough in Constructed. Maximum Firepower, the most powerful tactic in the game. Again, it's limited to a certain few cards, and it won't ever be useful in a sealed format. Same goes for the Breen CRM 114. A good card that allows you to send a shock troop of personnel and attack big outposts or big headquarters. But whether we get a Breen or an Arms Dealer, that's very unlikely, so we can't use that card. The Chain Reaction Ricochet, or the Chain Reaction Pulsar, again, it's limited to a specific type of ship, so we are not going to get that in the packs we have. Construct a Starship, again, a very situational card. We can't really pull it off in such a limited format. In Voyager, we have the Vidian Boarding Claw, which requires a Vidian Cruiser. Both these cards are rare. We cannot get them together in this format. In the Borg, we have the Think Tank ship, which requires a Think Tank personnel. So again, very, very difficult, though theoretically possible. But we would have to be really lucky to get them in the same pack. In Holodeck, we have the Ferengi Financial Data Net, place to discard your hand, and then we get a chance to draw cards, but we probably won't be able to draw enough unique Ferengi Greed personnel to ever make up for the number of cards we have to discard. And one of my favorite images, I just love scanning for life forms. It's deck manipulation that has its place when you can combo it with other cards. On its own, it's pretty much useless. So that's kind of the worst list of cards we can find. Most of them appear in the rare slot, not all of them, but that would be the worst possible scenario there. That said, it wasn't all that bad. Our biggest problem here was that we are suffering from a lack of missions. I think we only have 7 attemptable missions in our packs in total. And I decided to pick these 6 here. We only have one treaty, a Federation Romulan treaty, which limits us to either playing Federations and Romulan guys, or only Federation. We have a few Klingons and also a mission that is attemptable by Klingons, but not enough Klingon missions to build a proper Klingon deck. So there's only one other mission here. So it would theoretically be possible to play with Federation guys on one side and Klingon guys on the other side, but together that's probably not going to work. So in the end, what I've decided to do here is build a deck that can complete the repair mission with lots of engineers and computer skill, which we have, study stellar collision, which requires only stellar cartography, but we only have one Federation or one non-aligned guy actually with stellar cartography, so this is very difficult. And excavation, the planet should be pretty easy with its cunning of 32 and no skill requirements. I think we have one archaeology, but the cunning should be easy. Now, if you count the points, that brings us up to 85 only, so we need some bonus points. Why don't we do first contact? Because we didn't get any empathy, so we can't really do that. Collect sample, for that we need a Romulan, and covert installation, for that we need a Romulan too. So we need to get Romulans somehow into play. We have a Q-flash and some Q cards. However, we don't have a second Q-flash, so we can't actually seed one like a dilemma on the mission. So this is strictly as a decoy for our opponents. We have a battle bridge and even some tactics that we could use. For example, the pulse disruptor, and there's also the photon torpedo, so that gives us a little bit of extra defense. And thankfully, we got the temporal micro wormhole, which allows us to play alternate universe personnel, but not ships. So the wonderful HMS Bounty that we got in our last motion pictures pack is not a card that we can actually play. We have some hidden agendas, very situational cards that can be useful in the right situation, but really we use them because we don't have enough dilemmas. We have 19 dilemmas that we can play. I'm not going through them one by one. So we can actually cover space missions and planet missions pretty equally. We have a couple of very good dilemmas. For example, we had a crisis, which can buy us some time. And there's also a Berserk Changeling. Those are probably some of our best dilemmas together with the Phase device. The rest is not something that will stop the opponent for very long. We have mini synergy in that we got an assigned mission specialists and a couple of Federation mission specialist personnel. So we'll start with Talio with security and Mendon with science. So we have two critical skills or classifications in play from the start. Security and science are both skills that we don't have a lot of. So starting with them, especially security, which is required for a lot of dilemmas, is rather important. We also got lucky that we got the Federation outpost. We have a Klingon outpost that we can seed here just to mess with our opponent a little bit if they don't know what we're doing, but mostly because we don't have more dilemmas. And then let's just look at the deck. Let's shuffle this, draw a hand of 7. And as you can see, we have a couple of Federation guys with alternate universe icons that we can play, thanks to the temporal micro wormhole. We have some mini synergies like Leitner, who we can play, and he can download the Starfleet Type 3 phaser rifle, which we also got. So we can have more strength, which can be useful against some dilemmas. We also have mini synergy in that we got a ready room door, which plays for free. And we can use that to get out a captain's order card. So the yellow alert, which gives our personal cunning +1. And it also cancels red alerts if our opponent should play something like that. And then we really just tried to put in the Federation guys and non-aligned guys that we need to do the missions and try to keep the deck small, because a lot of skills that we need are only in there 1 or 2 times. So we want to keep the deck small so we can draw it quite early. Ships, we got lucky that we have a couple of ships that we can staff easily. There is also the USS Enterprise that requires 3 icons, which of course we run here. And also the USS Intrepid from the Voyager set, but still an Alpha Quadrant card. So it's only slightly worse than the USS Enterprise stats-wise, but it requires 1 personnel fewer to staff. So those will be our rides to get from mission to mission. There are a couple of situational interrupts. Amanda Rogers can cancel opponent's cards. Loss of orbital stability can cancel opponent's movement for a turn. Scan helps us look at some missions and prepare for the dilemmas that we're facing there. And there is also another one in our hand, I believe. Yes, Palatov can get 1 of these non-personal cards back from the discard pile to annoy our opponent again. Thino itself gets rid of small away teams in case they want to redshirt. So those are interrupts that you can almost always play. So I said that with all our nice Federation guys, we still only get to 85 points. How do we get to 100? We have a temporal micro wormhole, which allows us to report a personnel that doesn't have to be compatible with our guys. But then we have to discard the temporal micro wormhole. So once we do that, we can no longer play guys like Mark Tobiaston, who has the AU icon. But it helps us to get the Centurion, our rare card from Trouble with Tribbles, into play. We can ditch the temporal micro wormhole for that. And now he's compatible with our FATs. And he has a critical second stellar cartography to help us do that mission. More importantly, he is also Romulan, and he gives us access to these 2 missions. Collect Sample is quite difficult because we only have a single astrophysics, but covert installation with engineer, leadership, and treachery, those are all skills we have at least 2 of. So he gives us an out for these missions here. And if that doesn't work, we still have another race up our sleeve. We drew a colony. This is the errated version, so the card that appeared in our pack was more powerful. We can play that on a planet mission we've completed, and then we simply need to have our people camp out at the colony, and at the start of the turn, we will score more points. The original version reads 1 point for each personnel and 2 points if that personnel happens to be a civilian. And this is where our rare from Deep Space Nine, I believe it was, gets to shine. If you remember, that was Jake and Nog. I can't find them. Here they are. Because that's a single card that has 2 civilians on it. So these guys in the colony would score us 4 points at the start of each turn. We also have Ishar Rayar, and there's Oren Ren. So these guys at the start of the turn, if they're in the colony, score us 8 points already. So with 2 turns in the colony, if our opponent doesn't shoot us down, we can get to 100 even if the Romulan part fails there. So it was possible to play to build a deck that can, in theory, get to 100 points. It even has a little bit of room for failure. You could, in theory, also play the Klingon mission and just add in all the Klingons. They won't ever be used for anything else but that one mission, but it's a 5-span mission, and we really don't want to use that to mess up our own spaceline mobility there. So that's the best I could come up with. Not sure how we would do if we do this again with another 18 packs, but maybe we can find out at some point in the future.
I think you would have beaten me in 1994, but you might have a hard time winning these days.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. A lot of great stuff there and a lot of great information. And as somebody who has not played since DS9 came out, or at least not with cards newer than DS9, it's great to see them all.
I take it your job would have been a lot easier with an alternate universe door.
It would have allowed for some options. I think we had 2 alternate universe dilemmas that we could have included to give us more flexibility in that respect. We could have run the bounty. We had a couple of personnel in our motion pictures pack that have the motion pictures icon to fly the bounty. One of them was a mission specialist, so the security computer skill guy. So we even had staffing for the bounty guaranteed at the beginning of the game. So that would have helped. Yes.
Is there any single card that would have been better for your working with other than the AU?
I think another mission would have been
Okay.
nice that is attemptable by more affiliations. And I mean, what would make things a lot easier is something that gives you guaranteed access to a treaty, which is what they did in the OTSD, where you have the open diplomatic relations that they can see the treaty. We could put the treaty that we have in the deck together with more Romulan guys to give us more skills, but then it's the same with the colony. We have no way to download it, so we just have to draw into it and hope that we get it before we have lost the game.
Johannes, I imagine you played a lot of different formats. This is the first time you've kind of tinkered with this 17 pack,
Yeah.
and pack crack format. And you said if we open it up again, you'll have the chance to kind of compare. But just based on you really working hard, thank you. This was awesome to see. Kind of figuring out the deck. Do you think this is a viable format, or is this just really not going to cut it?
It's probably not something that you would play in a proper tournament scenario, mostly because the cards represent different eras in the game and different mechanics. So they, going through the years, they don't tend to work together very well. Sometimes, of course, you have cards from later sets. From even in Voyager, you find some Alpha Quadrant cards like our USS Intrepid that we can still run, but mostly there isn't a lot of overlap in that respect. And also within the same era, you probably need more packs to pull off certain strategies. As a single pack, look for example at the Q Continuum set. We had one Q flash that enables that side strategy, but we didn't have a second Q flash to put under our opponent's missions to actually trigger all those cards. So that's where a second, third, or fourth pack probably would have helped to create more synergy in that respect. I have to say, when I looked at the worst cards, I ignored all the missions and all the Borg cards because the Borg simply aren't playable in that format. So I decided against just calling out the Borg Queen as the worst card. It is a very good card. It's just not something that is compatible with that format. And the same goes for certain missions. I didn't want to include otherwise good missions simply because they aren't compatible with the majority of the packs we opened.
It's one thing talking about this, card by card, but putting it in the simulator and demonstrating kind of theoretically what could happen in the game was cool. I wish we had, the first time we're doing that on this series, that kind of opened my eyes to playing the game.
It was good fun.
Who wants to go next?
I will. So I spent some time this last couple of weeks looking at if I went to Antiques Roadshow with my collection or with a large collection that was nearly complete, what would I actually show in that 9-card frame to say, look how, as a collector, look how complete my collection is, and here's the really good stuff. Or at least here's even hints of the really good stuff. So I spent a little bit of time with this. I'm gonna kind of bounce around from some obvious ones to some not obvious ones. The first card I would put in there is an AU Future Enterprise. It's the first time we include or that CCG started ultra rares. It, especially if you can find the one in really pristine condition. AU is known for degrading even while you're sorting it. Your edges are really, really fragile. So if you can get a really nice AU Future Enterprise, it both shows that you know what you're doing with your cards, and it shows a really cool aspect of what we started to do as we made this game more interesting for collectors. Going from there, I'd probably go into some of the weirder stuff, like the USS Jupiter. Ideally, I would have one sealed in the package still, because the only way to get a hold of that was to buy something from outside of a pack. You couldn't buy a pack. You couldn't get a starter deck. You either had to get it from All Good Things or you had to get it from Star Trek Armada as a promo card. So it's a weird one, and it's harder to find than so many of the other cello cards. And it's just kind of another one of those fun tidbits from history. Kind of obvious card to include, you need at least, you look and you put either a JTK or a Dixon Hill in. One of the last two ultra rares, probably the JTK, James T. Kirk, because it's the grail card right now. It's the hardest one to find, the most expensive in the regular full-size card. Again, you want to find all of these in pristine mint condition. Then I go back to my weird ones. I would love to see as my next slot the DNA Metamorphosis card without the UV ink. This is one of those that's only available if you manage to get a hold of it through, we think only through Hill's buyout of Decipher's warehouse and cutting sheets that hadn't had that UV ink applied on it yet. So it's a very rare variation out of the Fajo collection. And so it hints at Fajo, and it's a beautiful card, and it's a fun, weird variant. Other semi-obvious, beautiful cards. I want a 34th Rule Tournament foil in there. Again, it's not something that you could have gotten in a pack. You had to have gone to a convention or won a tournament to actually get a hold of one of those, or picked it up later. But the sourcing is unusual, and the card is beautiful. It's one of my favorite foils. Other cards to throw in, I want a Yeoman Rand or a Christopher Pike from All Good Things. Something that you would want, but isn't one of the 5 or 6 cards that are hugely sought after for playability. Something that's part of the rest of that set. I love having included Rand and Pike. They felt like they were both missing in terms of completing the experience of the original series, as you know, they're missed cards in tribbles. Let's see what's left. I would include the 7 of 9 case topper foil. It's the only time that Decipher put cards not inside of a booster box. And it's a beautiful Borg foil as well. And White Border Defiant from Deep Space Nine, the first preview card, and it's beautiful and it's fun, and it was definitely the card a lot of us were looking for in DS9 as a collector and a fan. And I think the last one, if I've counted correctly, is the Admiral Forrest card from the Enterprise collection. Another one of the stepchildren of the set. It's the 18 card foil release that was 3 years after everything else. And I think it's a lot of fun, and it's the only time that Decipher touched Enterprise for first edition. And then an honorable mention is the 10th card, which you can't actually put in a 9-card grid because it's oversized, is the oversized Decorant. It's very, very difficult to find, and it's definitely one of those weird ones that if I'm looking for a collection and you say you've got it all, that's what I'm looking to see if you count it.
I really love your theme there. It's basically, if you're an expert, you know why each of those cards is exciting. And if you're not, they wouldn't necessarily, apart from like JTK, jump out at you. You know, as if I was skimming like a listing of stuff and I saw any of those, it would just be one of, oh, yep. That's a great set of things to get. So it's not just, you know, because I think when I did a similar sort of thought, I picked high value ones that, you know, kind of are very obvious. But I love the sort of subtlety of, ooh, yeah, if I saw one of these, like a, you know, the corner of one of these cards peeking out of a stack that had been, you know, laid out like that on a table, I'd be super excited about it because I knew it would hint at what that person must have done to build their collection.
Right. You see a Starfleet affiliation corner and you're like, oh, I'm interested in this. This lot might have something of interest, or some of those things. Yeah.
Or as you say, the inkless metamorphosis, that's a card someone has sought out through a very specific series of channels. It's not something that someone would have just picked up randomly. But I did make a 9-card list earlier, and I think this 9-card list is much more what you'd be thinking about, right? It's just the really obvious stuff. And the difference between my list and Dan's list is that Dan's list is, if you have the deep knowledge and you see any of those, you're like, oh my God, this lot is amazing. Whereas mine is the stuff that most people would know about. So for me, it would be my 9-page be the sort of black border, the card from Premier Limited, the sort of first unofficial ultra rare, even though he's not an ultra rare, AU Future Enterprise, for all the reasons Dan gave, the First Contact Borg Queen, because she is such a linchpin card, from DS9, the DS9/Terok Nor Station, because of its iconic status, the Trouble with Tribbles ultra rare McCoy, just obviously a card honoring the passing of DeForest Kelley and just being another ultra rare. The Reflections foil USS Defiant, which is one of the hardest of the 4 ultra rare foils to get. The Voyager Dual Affiliation Federation version 7 of 9. The Holodeck Adventures Dixon Hill, and the JTK from the motion pictures. So my 9 is what you would look at and instantly recognize almost all of those cards as someone with a decent familiarity with the game. Dan's 9, I loved hearing about, because they're the ones that, if you know the story behind each of those cards, you know why they're so special, but they're not sort of front and center like these other ones are in terms of people finishing off a sort of normal from pack type collection.
Awesome. Anything to add about our Antiques Roadshow experience?
No, I don't really think so. It was a wonderful thought exercise. I had a lot of fun with. Thank you.
Is the Dakaran signed or unsigned?
If I was doing it for Roadshow, it'd be unsigned.
Do you think it's true that there are more signed?
Actually, more rare.
Yeah. That's what I heard.
Yeah, Vaughn was at the most of the conventions where they were given out, so he signed a lot of them.
I think we have a new achievement to unlock. This did happen on Antiques Roadshow with the Magic the Gathering Power 9 for a collection. But if somebody here or on the Facebook group or somewhere can get on Antiques Roadshow with their collection of Star Trek CCG cards, that would just be the cherry on top of all this. That would be amazing.
The other one for Roadshow would probably be to just bring a sealed All Good Things and see what they said.
Well, this was our expert showcase video. Stay tuned for some more content coming up.